Tonight, a call is made for the full brunt of the law to be brought to bear on those convicted of heinous crimes. NEMO cautions against false sense of security by members of the public when it comes to the island's track record of being spared from natural disasters. And former Housing Minister Stanley Felix says there are too many questions left unanswered about the NHC by Minister Guy Joseph. We have the details of these stories and more coming up.
This is the Hot 7 Nightly News with Lovelace and Amy Joseph.
Good night. It is Thursday, the 30th of January 2020. Welcome to the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. We're on Flow, Channel 117. The broadcast is also being simulcast on Kiss FM Radio. You can watch via our website. It's www.caribbeanhottv.com or on our free Caribbean Hot FM mobile app. I'm lovely Saint Amy Joseph. Thank you for joining us. A member of the latest family to be impacted by gun violence is making a call for stiffer penalties for firearm offenses and enforcement of the law for heinous crimes. Pastor Franklin Bray is the brother-in-law of Victor Morris, who was gunned down near his home in November and passed away on Tuesday after a stay at hospital in Martinique. Bray says the fines being meted out for illegal gun possession do not serve as a significant deterrent.
I do not think, and I don't think I speak just for myself, I do not think it is the way the system functions. I do not think the penalties are stiff sufficiently to deal with those sort of things. However, the laws can only be applied as they are. So whereas a family may feel disadvantaged because of X, Y, and Z, but there's a balance to what can be done based upon the structure that exists. So what we need is not just tougher legislation, but we need to ensure that there is an enforcement.
Bray calls for a more meaningful application of laws. He says there are laws that speak to punishment for crimes that are not being enforced. The most talked about in the St. Lucian context is the death penalty, which is on our law books but has not been enforced in many years.
I believe if we apply those laws that are currently on our books, whereas we may not be able to solve every challenge or every problem that exists in St. Lucia, but a significant statement would have been made, and I think the country would breathe a sigh of relief because there's too much blood flowing. There's too much pain in families simply because someone decides to be violent, or because someone has access to firearm, because someone is able to be paid X amount of money to do X amount of job for X amount of person, just because I don't like him or her, that somebody's interfering in my business. I think that as a nation, we have had too much of a lackadaisical attitude with regards to dealing with criminality.
Bray says the system has to work for the benefit of citizens to ensure their safety and to ensure that they receive justice under the law. The death toll from the coronavirus outbreak has risen to 170, and a confirmed case in Tibet means it has reached every region in mainland China. Scientists are now racing to develop a vaccine for the new virus. Chinese health authorities said there were 7,711 confirmed cases of new coronavirus in the country as of the 29th of January. Infections have also spread to at least 15 other countries. The World Health Organization, WHO, will meet Thursday to again consider whether the virus constitutes a global health emergency. Research for a vaccine to help stem the outbreak got underway within hours of the virus being identified. Chinese officials released its genetic code very quickly. That information helps scientists determine where the virus probably came from, how it might mutate as the outbreak develops, and how to protect people against it. With technological advances and greater commitment from governments around the world to fund research on emerging diseases, research facilities were able to spring into action fast. At Inovio's lab in San Diego, scientists are using a relatively new type of DNA technology to develop a potential vaccine. The vaccine is currently called INO 4800, and there are plans for it to enter human trials by the early summer. The work in labs is being funded by the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, which is made up of and funded by governments and philanthropic organizations from around the world. The coalition was created in the aftermath of the Ebola outbreak in West Africa to provide funding to accelerate the development of vaccines for new diseases. The National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, is asking St. Lucians to ditch the common misconception that the island is somehow immune to the effects of natural disasters due to the number of times the island has been spared. This warning comes after the Cayman Islands experienced a tsunami following an earthquake in Jamaica. NEMO says St. Lucia has experienced tsunamis in the past, and it could happen again.
The National Emergency Management Authority, NEMO, wants St. Lucians to get out of the mindset where they believe that St. Lucia is untouchable when natural disasters are concerned, and to become more vigilant to what lurks in the possibly near future. Andrew George, who is NEMO's Program Development Officer, said whilst it is true that the nation has been spared from some of the major disasters that went on to decimate neighboring islands, this is no reason to sit back and believe that our turn will never come.
Things are happening all the time. We've had floods, we've had earthquakes. Right now, of course, the attention is switching to earthquakes because of the numbers of earthquakes that are happening in the region. But just to let St. Lucians know that we've had volcanic eruptions in the past, we've had tsunamis in the past, we've had floods, and we're going to have more as climate change takes hold. So there is absolutely no need to ever think that for some reason that we are spared because we are godly and we will be spared again. We have been lucky so far, but that does not negate the fact that we have to get ready. And we have to understand that the only way we can deal with those natural disasters is to be ready and to stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
George said in addition to staying in the state of preparedness, persons must always pay close attention to and take heed of the warning signs.
When the warnings are sounded, please heed. We have sirens in Castries, Ancillary, Canneries, Dennery, Vieux-Fort. When those sirens sound, you have to take it. There is nothing in it to say that our position in the island chain makes us vulnerable to all sorts of events. We are very close to the underwater volcano of Grenada called Kikemjeni, which is predicted to cause a tsunami to reach St. Lucia. So we have that to worry about. We have the hurricane season coming up. So we have to get ready, and it makes no sense trying to get ready for the hurricane season in June.
The program's director said, the need to be constantly vigilant is more vital than one might think, as disasters could occur anywhere, in any setting, at any time.
All disasters are local. It will affect you at your home, at your schools, at your business place. The national system can't be everywhere. We have to get personal responsibility. We have to take personal responsibility to ensure that we are ready, that we inculcate in ourselves a culture of preparedness, a culture of readiness, a culture of always thinking safety first. And it doesn't have to be a natural event. It could also be when we go to masquerade events. Any masquerade event you go to, you have to think, what am I going to do if there is an incident at this place that I am? If there is a stampede, if there is a stage collapse, if there's something happening, I have to be ready. And I always have to think that I have to be the one to take care of myself initially. So it's about personal responsibility. It's about understanding the risk. It's about understanding how you could deal with the risk and ensuring that you have the skills, the capability, and the knowledge to deal with the risk when it happens, because it is going to happen.
After a 7.7 magnitude earthquake struck Jamaica on the 28th of January 2020, the natural disaster set off a 1.5-foot tsunami, which struck the Cayman Islands on the same day. Fortunately, there were no recorded injuries or serious damages. In 1755, St. Lucia was struck by a 10-foot tsunami, which commenced in Cape State and reached as far inland as Dennery. Thousands of lives were lost in the process. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I'm Rochelle Gonzalez.
Mayor Peterson Francis says he hopes that St. Lucia does not return to the plantation age in a situation where the island establishes a cannabis industry. He says it would be a shame to see St. Lucians become workers and not owners of the cannabis industry. He made the comments after a meeting with the cannabis movement on Wednesday afternoon. First, it was the LGBT advocacy group, and now it's the cannabis movement that the Castries Mayor, Peterson Francis, has initiated dialogue with. He says he is keeping an open mind to the ideas and contribution of all sections of society on how to move the country forward. Francis, who is not known to be a proponent of decriminalization or legalization of cannabis, sought to explain his previous position on the matter.
What I said is this: presently, I'm not going to, there's not any help I'll offer to that movement in the sense of legalizing or decommunizing it. At that time, that's what I said. I will not offer any help at that time because I wanted to meet the movement, I wanted to hear what is happening, I wanted to see their side. I've been hearing what is happening on television so much face to face, and that is why last week I met with the LGBT people. I like to face. Let me have we could talk as men and women, we could give our views, we could advise, and so on. And that's basically what my position.
President of the cannabis movement, Andrew DeCaries, was grateful for the opportunity to have open dialogue on the matter.
Well, I really want to thank the mayor. It came out of the blue, the invitation. I knew he had concerns with the term legalization, and it's just a great opportunity for us to speak one-on-one, because like you said, when you listen to it on the TV, you get blips and blurbs, 3-minute snippets of something that you're trying to propose, when it could easily take 2 hours and you still can't, encompass everything that is involved with this process. It's going to be complex, but we've been looking at this for over a decade, in fact longer than any other Caribbean island in terms of the social aspect, the human rights aspect.
Mayor Francis says, reflecting on his own personal experiences, he is not quick to demonize the herb.
I'm not against it. As I said, I raised in a community where you find that I was exposed to it. I mean, none of us became bad people in society. That doesn't mean I have not smoked marijuana in my life, but I'm talking about people, the area I was with. I mean, that was prevalent, and everybody grown up to be healthy and good citizens of St. Lucia.
DeCaries says the classification of cannabis under our Misuse of Drugs Act has created more harm than good, and it is time for the system to change.
And I think the St. Lucian people are ready to they're fed up of people being locked up and put in jail, and you have totally innocent people in a criminal factory. Because somebody gets busted for herb, you go for $20 worth of herb, you spend $60,000 to punish the person, and he comes out now more of a criminal than he went in as. And I think everybody is aware of that. So step one, we need to decriminalize.
Both parties described the talk as candid and edifying. The issue of financial instability has long plagued the National Housing Corporation, NHC. However, former Housing Minister Stanley Felix says never did these issues affect payment of employees. With ongoing investigations into the operations of the NHC by the National Workers Union, Felix says the root of the issue is likely to lie with Minister with responsibility for housing, Guy Joseph. Shaka Wooding tells us more.
Former NHC Chairman Stanley Felix is calling on Housing Minister Guy Joseph to provide an account for NHC monies, which was supposed to have been accumulated from the selling off of Talvern lands.
My understanding is that they have since sold all of the land, meaning that a couple $1 million came into the coffers of the NHC. So, having had access to that money, you tell me, shouldn't the NHC be in a better position now than it was then financially?
This request has been made against the backdrop of recent payment issues reported by NHC employees to the NWU for January salaries. Felix says the minister's claims of inheriting a problematic NHC from the previous government are inaccurate, and he urges Minister Joseph to take greater responsibility for this aspect of his portfolio.
During our tenure and before we demitted office, the National Housing Corporation had zero overdraft, meaning that it owed nothing to the bank by ways of its current account. The overdraft, which was at some $3 million, was cleared, and NHC was not even operating by way of an overdraft. There was zero owed to the bank. When you put the current NHC headed by Timothy Mangle and Guy Joseph, who came into the Taliban funds where they sold all of the land, that revenue came into the NHC, okay, having inherited an account where zero amount was owed to the bank. How else do you explain not being able to meet your monthly commitments?
Felix says the current financial status of the NHC, poor communication ethics, and employee dissatisfaction are all characteristic of poor governance.
With everything going on at the NHC and surrounding the NHC, the employees, the board, the chairman, I mean, one can only conclude that there is no leadership at the NHC. And that is the question, and that is the issue. There is financial accountability that is lacking, okay? And there's an issue of proper governance and management at the NHC. The board of the NHC, or the chairman, reports to the minister. So if there is no chairman, the minister ought to tell the people that there's no chairman, and this is what I have done in the interim. If that is not done, then he's failing in his responsibilities.
The former housing minister says the current situation the NHC faces can be remedied, despite the opposing opinions of Guy Joseph, who has stated that the NHC cannot be salvaged. For Hot 7 News, I am Jacques Wooding.
This is the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Still to come, the Ministry of Health continues its prep work given the threat of the new coronavirus. Performing artists benefit from a workshop by new business entity Balance Inc. And the St. Lucia Blind Welfare Association inducts 2 individuals into its Hall of Fame. That and more coming up after the break.